Hello guys, and welcome back to Leah's Lifestyle. We're back in it with another book club reading on Invested, chapter 8. And we're getting close to the end, guys. Whoop whoop. So let's get through this. I got my note and my paper here. For this month or this week that we're doing it, whatever you're doing, it's August if you're going by the months. You don't have to, of course, just like I say every single time we get on here, but a reminder in each video is necessary. For this month, we're working on margin of safety valuation method, earnings per share, Winget growth rate, Winget PE ratio, and minimum acceptable rate of return, MARR. Oh, don't ruin the book. Okay, so the first note that I have here is when you are waiting to see if someone shows up for you, you have to show up for yourself. That's just how it works. I wanted to be the successful investor self that I could see in my mind's eye. And I think that's really important, is not only to find who that person is, but to want to be that person that you see in your life. And then to remind yourself over and over again, because there will be times that it's you who has to show up, that no one else is going to be here to save you, that even if you try and give your money to the 401ks and over to the money managers, they're still going to take a percentage and they're never going to do as good as you could do, because that's just not how their job works. The margin of safety is a price below the company's value that will protect us from most mistakes. Not all, but most. The 10 cap and payback time have a margin of safety. The margin of safety is built into both. The 10 cap requires a return that is very high. That means the buy price must be very low and therefore has a big margin of safety. The payback time price gets us our money back in 8 years. Roughly half of that of the same business would sell for if it was public, and therefore about a 50% margin of safety. So I think a big thing that we're going to say here, I'm just going to put a little mark, margin of safety. And then I'm going to put underneath that a 0.10 10 cap. And just like a little quote here. It requires a return that is very high. Requires a return that is very high. That means the buy price must be very low and therefore has a big margin of safety. That means the buy price must be very low, high margin of safety. And then underneath that, I'm going to make a point for the payback time. Payback time. And a quote underneath that. The payback time price gets us our money back in 8 years. Money back in 8 years. Roughly half of what the same business would sell. Of what the same business would sell for it if it was a public, and therefore 50% of margin. So for if it was public, therefore 50% margin of safety. Okay. And then a note about per share numbers. So I'm going to write here, a little mark, per share numbers. Whole company numbers are different from per share numbers. And a little mark. Whole company numbers are different from per share numbers. Okay, next page. And for that understanding, the financial industrial complex divides the whole company numbers into per share numbers. This is helpful, but be aware always of whether you're using per share numbers or whole company numbers. Either one is totally fine as long as you're consistent with your format. Financial people often switch back and forth between whole company numbers and per share numbers, which is really irritating and can be really confusing. So I'm just going to make a little quote. Watch to make sure when I do formulas to use one or the other, since, what did she say? Financial people, I'm going to say also / statements, can and will switch between both. Okay, and then we're going to go on to pricing method number 3, margin of safety. So I'm going to make another mark. Pricing method. Number 3, margin of safety. All right, the margin of safety, MOS, and I'm going to MOS next to it. Method calculates what I'd pay today to get years of future earnings and my risk of actually getting the money in the future. What I'd pay today. Okay, so I'm going to mark what I pay today and the risk of getting it back in the future. What's the safest place you can think of? So there is one. Where is the best place you can put your money when you're waiting to do anything with it? And the safest place it can go is into the U.S. government treasury bonds, T-bills. So I'm going to make a little mark. Safest place to put money till you use it, T-bonds. They represent the risk-free rate of return. And so I'm going to put a little quote underneath that. Risk-free rate of return. If we're putting our money to work somewhere else, which is not risk-free, we need to be paid more than the risk-free rate, or else you might as well keep your money and enjoy using it instead of tying it up in an investment. So essentially, the risk-free rates, I think, are anywhere between 4 and 6% in the T-bonds. I'm going to double check that real quick. Best risk-free rate on T-bonds. Double check here. Um, 4%. I love how it's not telling me. Now we're going to go to ChatGPT. And we're going to ask the same question. I'm realizing I'm using Yahoo. I'm not liking any of the... Why is it automatically going to Yahoo? I'm on Chrome. What is going on? I'm gonna... What the floop? Oh, it's not letting me use it. Okay. Whatever. Floop you. Best rates on risk-free T-bonds. Let's see what it says. 3 month is 3 to 6.9%. 1 year is 3.7. 5 years is 4%. 10 years is 4.3 to 4.4. 30 years is 4.9. 97. Okay. So honestly, probably shouldn't do more than three months to a year, truthfully, if you're not using the money. So yeah, if you can't get a high yield saving account that will do more than that for you each month, then I think T-bonds will be perfect. That's what you should do. That's what you should do. Okay. Discounted cash flow analysis. That's what we're going to move on to next. So I'm going to put a little mark. Discounted cash flow analysis. Okay. We need to use readily available mainstream numbers for this pricing method so we can compare our results with how the rest of the world values the company, since we'll be buying from others and selling to them. The important thing here is, 1, know that we're making a change from owner earnings to free cash flow earnings. So I'm going to write 1, owner earnings to free cash flow. 2, we're making a change from pricing a company as a private company to valuing a company as a public company. Pricing a company as a private to valuing a company as public. Okay, 3. Therefore, which, if you remember, typically doubles the price. So I'm going to actually mark after doubles the price. Okay. And number 3, therefore, results may be a bit different from the payback time and 10 cap time. Results might differ from payback time and 10 cap. Solid rate of return for stocks is a 15% per year. A 15% compounded return rewards me. Her dad calls this Phil Town, calls this a 15% return hit on his minimum acceptable rate of return, or MARR. The higher I set the MARR, the lower my investment will be. I got my MOS valuation by estimating what I expect to sell the company for in 10 years, then worked backwards using a 15% MARR and basic algebra to arrive at the price I'm willing to pay. So I'm going to mark here. We're going to say solid rate. I'm going to say 15% return on I'm going to say return on investment, ROI, and then per year, and then I'm going to in quotes say compounded rate rewards. And then underneath that, I'm going to say MARR, and then I'm going to minimum acceptable rate of return. You can write minimum acceptable rate of return. Okay. 15%. I got my MOS valuation by estimating what I expected. Okay, so then another mark. MOS evaluation. And then underneath that, I'm going to say The valuation estimated that I expect to sell the company for in 10 years. Expect to sell in 10 years. Years. MARR at 15. I'm going to say what you expect to sell in 10 years. MARR 15. Work backwards. Work backwards to see what you buy at. And then they have the summary here. Summary of margin safety methods. Summary of margin of safety methods. And then I'm going to say required numbers. And the first one is earnings per share, which is EPS. Second one is windage growth rate. The third one is price to earnings. Which is PE ratio. And the fourth one is minimal accepted rate of return, MARR. And I'm just writing them all down so I can get them stuck into my head, so I really remember that. New numbers again. The MOS numbers, though, are easy to obtain and have been through the crucible of deciphering and calculating owner earnings and free cash flow. I learned these numbers quickly. They don't require reading footnotes on the financial statement. The MOS numbers were like a vacation. Here is how to prep them. Numbers needed to calculate margins of safety. So I'm going to say numbers needed to calculate margin of safety. So MOS is margin of safety. The price. Okay, so I think this has like the definitions and examples in it, but what I'm just gonna do is we're gonna go through each number. So the first one is EPS, and I'm gonna give you like the how to find it or like the calculations things that it says. So EPS provided on the income statement. Provided on the income statement. Windage growth rate, which I'm going to make a mark, WGR is what I'm going to call it, WGR, so I don't have to write it all out. We know this one already, yay for having to decide it way back when we were working on Moat. Doesn't that seem like a simpler time when taking an educated guess on a growth rate was intimidating? A growth rate, we've come a long way, baby. So that's, if you guys remember, that's when you decide based on how fast they were growing and how fast and what you know about them on how fast that they are growing. The minimum windage growth rate that you want is 10%. So you should always, like, if you see the company growing at an average of above 10%, then you can always assume that that will be the minimum windage growth rate that they will have. Windage price to earnings, PEO ratio. So I'm going to say PE ratio. I'm going to say just PE. Use the lowest of these two options. 1, multiply 2 times the windage growth rate number lost. Lose the percentage symbol. This is a straight number. 2, the historical highest PE of the company of the last 10 years, readily available online. So, lowest of one of these. 1, 2 times the WGR, or 2, historical highest PE of the company last 10 years. Okay. Minimum acceptors rate of return. So the MARR and it's always 15. I'm just gonna write 15%. And then underneath that is margin of safety formula. And it has the 4 steps. So step 1, we're gonna go out. You can, if you get the book or you read the book, you can hear like their plain English version, but we're just gonna do the math version. And so the math version is EPS times quotation 1 plus windage growth rate WGR quotation repeated 10 times equals future 10 minus year earnings per share can be done manually year by year or on a spreadsheet. I don't really need to write that. Okay. Step 2, future 10-year earnings. Future 10-year earnings per share multiplied by the windage PE equals future 10-year share price. Remember, the windage PE is the lower of the two of the windage PE rate. Which we already have written down. 3, future 10-year share price. Divided by quotation 1.15, and then it says years. Oh, it's so 1.15 and then raised by years. Or what is that when it's like you times it by the years equals sticker price. Or future 10-year share price divided by, or future 10-year share price divided by 4. Okay, number 4, sticker price divided by 2 equals margin of safety. safety buy price. And that's the math. Twice the windage growth rate is an accurate and easy stand for the PE ratio. Which they do talk about. Okay. Just remember that. Let's move on. A note from Phil. This is about, okay, so this is why I didn't write this down yet. This is about how to do it in Excel if you guys are somebody who wants to put it in Excel. I'm not really like that kind of person. I probably should. Maybe I will. Excel, it is equal PV, parenthesis, or begin parenthesis, end parenthesis, and equals VF, and beginning parenthesis, end parenthesis. When you equal VF, end parenthesis, beginning parenthesis, 16%, comma, 10, comma, negative 20. So it's VF, parenthesis, rate, NPER, PMT, PV, type. And now you can decide what someone would reasonably pay for the business today. It looks like this. That was for the windage growth rate, the numbers of years, and the ESP. So this is, you can decide what the reasonably pay for. It's PV, the parentheses, that's what we were talking about. So it's PV, quotation, parentheses, 15%, 10, negative 1,941.06, and parentheses. So it's PV, rate, NPER, PMT, BF, and type. Let's see here. I should probably write that down. I'll write in Excel. So the first part is to grow your earnings into the 10-year. So I'm going to say, actually I'm going to start on the other page. XL formulas. And so the first one is going to be first we're going 10-year future. We grow the current earnings. 10-year current earning growth. And we're going to use the plain English instead of like the short ones that I said. So we're going to do equal FV, and then in parentheses, the windage growth rate. So WGR, they just say rate. Number of years, which is 10. And so they that believe for this one 16%. Remember, always more than 10. 15 is best. And then the EPS. And if you put that in the way that you want it to look in Excel when you do it, would be what I said before, which VF, parentheses, rate, NPR, PMT, PV type. Okay, and then the second one would be for reasonable pay, excuse me, today, which is so VF is future value. VF is future value. So the future. So PV, I'm guessing, is pay value. So PV equals PV parenthesis windage growth rate, number of years, which is 10. PMT. VF, or FV, sorry, and type. What is the type? EPS. I have to write it so I remember it too. The rate is the MARR. The NPR is the number of years to go back, which is 10, because we're going forward 10. Skip the PMT, and the VF is the future value, right? Skip the PMT, so we're skipping that out. So wait, it's not windage growth rate, it's MARR. So I'm going to MARR. I'm replacing that one. VF is the future 10 years. Don't forget to put in the VF is the future value of the business in 10 years. Don't forget to put in the minus sign. Hit return. The value of the business today. Oh, so we don't need EPS. And I'm going to remember to put the minus sign there so that we don't forget. And the minus sign here so I don't forget in the future. Okay. Got those written down. It was so painful to read financial statements that I had to bribe myself with a treat afterwards. Yeah, I do the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to play video games. Payback time is often the most accurate and most useful. Oh, this is when it tells you, like, I think this is important for you guys to remember. Payback time is often the most accurate and most useful because it is based on free cash flow, and it includes the potential of the business to grow with free cash flow larger and larger into the future. But in Whole Foods' case, they're spending a huge amount of their cash on growing the business by opening new stores. That is likely to add a lot of free cash flow in the future, but it is reducing free cash flow now. And that means the 8-year payback time buy price is going to be lower than the other pricing methods. If you want to know if you're really stealing it, the 10 cap based on owner earnings works quite well. If you can buy a wonderful public business at 10 times over owner earnings, that's a really good deal because it doesn't require future growth to be successful investing. And the margin of safety formula gives you a conservative public company value. So the next things that we're going to be doing is adding onto our list of checkmark stuff to get off. So I'm actually going to go back in my notes because I would like it to add it to the same spot where I have my other ones. Which are here. Okay, so I'm going to make a little mark for my, it says 4 here, reasonable price of margin of safety. I'm going to make a little arrow. I'm going to make 4 here. And I'm going to put my little square. It says, what is the 10 cap buy price? What is the 10 cap buy price? A little square. What is the 8-year payback time price? What is the 8-year payback time price? And what is the margin of safety buy price? What is the margin of safety buy price? Okay. Then we have homework. Homework. And our homework for this week or this month, August practice, says calculate the margin of safety price of each of the 3 companies you have already valued. Compare these 3 prices you have calculated for each company and decide on your buy price. Most importantly, reward yourself with a treat. So the homework is calculate the margin of safety price of your 3 companies. Compare the 3 prices and decide on your buy price. Then treat yourself. Okay. And that's it, guys. So for the homework, don't forget to do those calculations of your companies, the 3 prices. If you haven't gotten to that point, keep working on evaluating and understanding your companies and making sure you can understand your companies and working out whether the management is good or not. But try and catch up and do that. And don't forget to treat yourself. Don't forget to read chapter 9. And I'll meet you guys here next week to catch up on the notes. And until next time, if you're finding this on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment down below. What are your companies? How are they going? What are your prices at? How's everything running through? Share. Let's all work together on this. Don't forget to hit that bell icon down below so that way you know every time when I post. And until then, bye.